Right. Welcome. Welcome, friends. Today we are continuing our journey into emotion regulation. And we talked about last time. What did we talk about last time? Check the facts. So today we are going to get into ABC Please. So if you're following along in your handy dandy notebook, we're on page 247. We spoke a little bit last time about how ABC Please is the foundation of all the stuff. So in this workbook, it's a circle, and so you can start anywhere on that circle and you'll end up back at the same place eventually. So that's how DBT works. Is there's 4 different modules. You do mindfulness, then interpersonal effectiveness, then mindfulness, then distress tolerance, then mindfulness and emotion regulation and mindfulness. And then you go back to the beginning and do whatever you started with. It takes 6 months to get through that, typically. And then typically people do that whole process again for 6 months. So you get mindfulness a whole bunch, and then all the other modules at least twice. Because typically the first time you hear it, it's all kind of dense, a little bit confusing, doesn't necessarily make sense all the way. But the second time you hear it, you've gotten more stable, your emotions are a little bit more predictable and balanced and regulated, and you're able to kind of use your executive functioning and really kind of get the stuff and put it into good use. It's also super important and super helpful to write in your book and actually do your homework. It is math. It is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Yes, you can do it in your head at the beginning or the simpler stuff, but if you don't write the stuff down at the beginning, you're not going to be able to do these big, complicated, hard equations at the end. So you have to show your work, you have to do your homework, you have to write it down on paper. Another benefit of writing it down is that when you go back through it 6 months later, you're like, oh, wow, look at how much I've gotten better. Look at what I was doing then and versus what I'm doing now. Cannot emphasize enough how important it is to write it down. Okay, ABC Please. So we're going to talk about please first and then go back to the ABC part. So please is on page 257. So the please part is every poster that you've seen on your primary care doctor's office wall. Eat right, exercise, sleep. Like it's all like so blah, blah, blah that we all just like, yeah, I know I need to exercise. I know I need to walk. I know I need to eat every day. But no, for realsies, like if you're in this, if you're a highly sensitive person, if your emotions are all over the place, you can't deal with that stuff. You cannot regulate that stuff if you're hungry, if you're tired, if you're sick, if your body is all jacked up in a million different ways, you cannot deal with a complicated dynamic with your boss or with your mother or grieve over the loss of your pet or whatever kind of complicated emotional mental stuff you got going on that you're trying to heal, you're trying to deal with. You can't do that if you are not sleeping. You can't do that if you have untreated IBS, like whatever your thing is that is going on physically, it will prevent you from successfully doing the other stuff. And so often people are trying to do these complicated, intense mental, emotional healing processes, and they're not eating at all that day. Just wipes it off the table. You have to eat. You have to sleep. You have to take your medicines. You gotta not be drunk or high. And so that is what please is. So it is the weirdest acronym in the book, and there are some doozies in there, but it is the dooziest. So PL is physical illness. How you say? We don't know. There's a P and an L in physical illness, and that's PL. So the pl on please is physical illness. You got to treat your physical illness first. So ABC please is step one. Step one, are you sick? Treat it. Do you have a headache? Do you have indigestion? Do you have diabetes? Do you have some kind of physical illness that you need to be addressing? And it's just a checklist. If so, deal with it. If you have a headache, take some Tylenol. If you have whatever it is, treat your physical illnesses. Step one. Step two, eat. I know that sounds simple. It's super complicated. I've never met a female in my entire life that does not have some kind of body related ideas that are usually pretty negative. Diet culture, body size, feeling embarrassed or ashamed, trying to lose weight, maybe trying to gain weight, trying to gain muscle. Like, we all in the West, at least, have such a messed up relationship with our body. And typically that also brings in a complicated relationship with food. So when I say you just got to eat, I know it's not that simple. And you just got to eat 5 times a day. Morning, noon, night, snacks. You have to fuel your brain. Anything is better than nothing. Now, if you're binging, if you're eating too much, that's a whole different problem. But I would rather you be eating too much than too little. Like, your brain cannot function without calories. You cannot think through how you're going to bring up getting divorced with your spouse if you don't have fuel in your brain. You cannot regulate your emotions if your brain is starving. You have to eat, and you have to eat regularly. What you eat, I don't really care. Like, that's a whole different topic of discussion. If you're binging, if you're only eating Twinkies, if you're only, the too much side of it, that's a different topic. We can deal with that later. Too much is not a problem in ABC, please. Too little is a real problem. If you're starving yourself, if you're purging, if you're taking laxatives, if you're throwing up, if you are only eating pink colored foods, if you're not eating enough, you are not going to be able to regulate your emotions. So not only will your cognitive functioning and your executive functioning be able to think through and calm down and manage and think of the skills to use, but you're going to be hangry and you're going to be scared and you're going to be, we are animals. And if we're starving animals, we're emotional and we're primal. And it is just 3 million times worse if you don't have food in your belly. Take Tylenol if you need to take Tylenol. Eat a snack. Avoid mood altering substances. So again, this is a checklist. If you're about to tell your mom that you want to move out, or if you're about to break up with your partner, or if you're about to go on a job interview, take your medicine, eat something. You can't do it when you're drunk. You can't do it when you're high. Avoid the mood altering substances. And so sometimes that's even caffeine. But mainly, of course, alcohol and drugs. Again, if that's on the table, that's where you begin and end. How are you going to do these really complicated, difficult skills if you're stoned? And you're not going to be able to learn them. You're not going to be able to retain them. Just like if you don't have enough food in you, your brain's not going to be able to work as it should. If you're stoned, if you're drunk, if you're high, your brain's not going to be able to work. You're not going to be able to learn the skills, use the skills, calm yourself down, think through it, be logical. So I'm not saying never drink or never smoke or never do whatever it is that you're doing. Maybe it's not a problem, If it's not a problem, that's fantastic. You be you. But don't do those things before you're going to do harder things. Don't do those things before you're going to learn how to do these things. Like, at least stay sober during the time frame where you're doing these other skills. Save getting wasted for a time period that is not going to mess up your life. Sleep. All of this goes back to, you know, if you're sick, you can't think. If you're hungry, you can't think. If you're high, you can't think. If your brain has not gotten sleep, you can't think. You're not going to be able to do these complicated things if you're tired. And sometimes sleep is the thing that will be the tipping point that will make you okay. None of these things are easy. Eating is not easy. Staying sober is not easy. You know, doing the stuff that you need to do to focus on your body when you don't care about your body in the first place is not easy. You know, these things are simple and they are not easy, for sure, and excruciatingly important. So, again, so caffeine has a half-life of 8 hours. I can't do math, but if you drink a cup of coffee in the morning, you still have half a cup of coffee in your bloodstream 8 hours later. 8 hours after that, 16 hours after you ingested the coffee, you still have a quarter of a cup of coffee in your bloodstream. So a whole 24 hours after that, I guess, right? 16 and 8 would be when the coffee finally got out of your system, which is when you're drinking more coffee. And that's just one cup in the morning. So if you're drinking sodas, if you're drinking tea, if you're drinking coffee throughout the day, you're not going to be able to sleep. Now, all of this to say, if you don't have a problem with eating, if you don't have a problem with physical illnesses, if you don't have a problem with sobriety, if you don't have a problem with sleeping, then throw all this stuff out the window and just congratulate yourself and pat yourself on the back, because that's amazing. Don't worry about this stuff if this stuff is not a problem. But if it is, stop right there and address this stuff. So sleeping, we'll do sleep hygiene in a minute. There's a whole sleep hygiene protocol that nobody likes. It sucks. It's not pleasant. Nobody wants to do it. I've maybe gotten 12% of my people to actually do it fully legit. But if you fully legit do it, you have given yourself the best chance to actually sleep. So, like when we're doing a Dear Man and interpersonal effectiveness, it may not work, but once you have done it, you know that you gave yourself the best shot to actually getting what you want. If you do sleep hygiene, you know that you've given yourself the best shot of actually sleeping. So again, maybe it won't work and it'll be really annoying that you went through all of that effort and it still doesn't work, but at least you gave it your best shot, and do it for at least 6 weeks. You know, not only give it your best shot, but give it your best shot and some time for it to actually work. And then, of course, like exercise, you need to move your body. You need to get that dopamine. Like there are studies about like forward momentum and the eye movement going back and forth can be enough to make you feel so much better. That's part of why they think that EMDR works. Like moving and looking is a healing thing in and of itself. So I'm not worried about like hardcore cardio or, you know, bench pressing however many pounds is a lot, but just move your body. And it also helps to change the environment, and changing the environment changes your mood. So if you've been in your bed all day, go into the living room. If you've been in your living room all day, go outside. Just please, for the love of everything, get sunlight, especially in the wintertime, and get fresh air. That sounds so simple and so reductionist and so like, how is this going to make me not want to die? But it is a huge piece of not wanting to die. Put your body into the sunlight, into the air, and move it slowly, gently. Like I don't personally understand how people get joy out of running and cardio and like hardcore hiking, but I love to like amble, meander, Look at the flowers, look at the birds, look at the trees, smell things, see things, breathe in a different way, move in a different way. And it's not exercising to lose weight and it's not exercising to make your body healthy, which are great side effects if that happens, if that's what you're looking for. It is just about enjoying the capacity that your body has, using the capacity that your body has. You know, we will all eventually, hopefully, be 90 years old and unable to climb a hill. If you can go climb a hill now, you should go climb a hill. Explore and, like, you know, just kind of honor and utilize and celebrate what capacity your body has. And if that's like huffing and puffing and going, you know, 100 yards, then rock on with your bad self with your 100 yards. It's more than you can do when you're 90 in a wheelchair. You know, do 100 yards. This is not about pushing. This is not about winning. This is not about losing weight. This is not about burning calories. It is just movement and change of environment and the benefits of air and sunlight and the benefits of seeing and feeling and experiencing something different, especially in the midst of this situation we have all found ourselves in circa January 13th, 2022. Okay, please, physical illness, eating, avoid drugs, sleep, and exercise. On your checklist, bam, 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 bam. If you're good on all those, if you've moved, if you're sleeping okay, if you're eating regularly, if you're not getting high, if you don't have headaches or stomach aches or whatever your physical things are, then great, you can move on to stage 2. If you have to stop at any one of those points, address that and then move on. So I might get into it today, but when we do chain analyses in individual therapy, we look back on a problem behavior. I self-harmed. I did a bunch of drugs. I slept with somebody. I quit my job. Whatever your thing is that you're doing that you wish you wouldn't have done. We do a whole chain on it and think, I need to make sure people aren't commenting, sorry. We do a whole chain on it and think, what happened before? What were the vulnerability factors? What was the problem behavior? What were the after effects? And like go through and list like what all is happening. 90% of the time, when you do a problem behavior, one of your vulnerability factors will be something on this please list. I was hungry and I blew up on my brother. I was exhausted and I was snappy with my kid. I was stoned and I quit my job. You know, I was one of these things and then I did a problem behavior. 90% of the time. ABC Please will be one of the solutions that we find or one of the missing links in the chain that could have taken it in a different direction. If you would have eaten, then you wouldn't have self-harmed, you know, and it seems so simplistic, but sometimes that is enough to like get you into a different chain of events. Okay, so that is please. I kind of hate doing this part of the chapter because it feels so preachy and it feels like it's so simplistic and easy, and I know it's not. And it feels like such like want, you know, eat your vegetables and get a good night. But it's also true. So sleep hygiene. You're not gonna like it. I don't like it. But when oh shit, sorry. Oops, whoops. Just trying not to curse on here. That lasted a good 5 minutes. Okay, so sleep hygiene, you're not gonna like it. It's not pleasant. It just kind of sucks. And think of sleeping as scales. And each one of these things that we're doing for sleep hygiene is just a little drop and a little drop and a little drop and a little drop. And eventually, if you do enough things, maybe you will tip the scales and actually sleep. So it's kind of like those food allergy diets where you like eliminate the things and then slowly add them back, and then maybe you'll see what all is going on. kind of like that. You don't know which one of these things is going to be the thing that will tip you over into it. And then if you're lucky enough to be able to sleep, maybe you don't have to do all these things. You can go back and be like, well, maybe I don't have to do this and maybe I don't have to do that and I'll still be able to sleep. But at the beginning, if you're not sleeping for reals, you need to do all these things. So again, bless her, Marcia did not put this in the best graphic design kind of formatting. So it's on page 259. I like a sheet that you can just Google that has some pictures on it that is a little bit more reader friendly. Let me see if I can Google it. Yeah, so if you Google sleep hygiene PDF, those are a little bit easier to. The Center for Clinical Interventions is the one that I like. It looks like that, but you can also just take notes right now. And I mean, she does have most of this stuff in the book, but not all of it. So I would look to external resources as well. So the stuff that, in my opinion, is the most meaningful and the most unpleasant. I'm just going to read a list of like 13 of these. Number 1, go to sleep and get up at the same time every day. That means weekends, that means holidays, that means Christmas, that means when you retire, that means when you're on vacation, that means when you're on winter break from school, that means every day you go to bed at whatever time you decide and you get up at whatever time you decide. You go to bed at 10 and you get up at 7. Even if you're not tired, even if you don't want to, even if your friends are over, like, again, these things are going to suck, but this will help get your body back into a sleeping habit. And so again, maybe eventually you can let this go, but at the beginning, if you're not sleeping, try these things. So go to sleep and wake up at the same time. People who are getting out of the military, people who are retiring, people who are working from home now, there's people who are on disability. There's a lot of reasons why this is like, I can do whatever I want. Why should I? Because you're not sleeping and you're miserable. Pick a sleep time, pick a wake time, and stick to it no matter what. Get into a routine. So in so many things, if we would just treat ourselves like a 5-year-old, it would be so much better. With my little kids, we always have dinner and then play a game and then brush our teeth and then put on jammies and then read a book and then have a drink of water and then go to sleep and sing songs. If we're like at putting on our jammies, we know that all those things have happened before and all these things are going to happen next. And like your body is an animal that gets into habits and behaviors and routines. And eventually you'll start to get sleepy as you're brushing your teeth because your body knows that the next step is sleep. So really making this animalistic behaviorism process cemented in. Bath, jammies, cookies, brushing teeth, book, bed every single night at the same time will really help. The bath part is also helpful. So your body goes into sleep mode when the temperature drops. So you want your room to be as cold as it can be comfortably. And you want your body to have gotten hot and then cold, right? So that's why the bath is actually a very important part of the process. So taking a hot shower and go into a cold room, the dropping of temperature will induce sleep. Make sure that you've eaten. So again, back to the E and please. If your body is hungry, and once we jack with our hunger systems and our eating systems, which again, everybody that I know in modern culture has done, you lose hunger cues and you don't realize that you're hungry when you are hungry, and your body is like all amped and wired and looking for food because we're cavemen, but you've lost those hunger cues. And so you don't know why you're awake, but it's because you're hungry. So getting some kind of protein in you, a peanut butter sandwich, a turkey sandwich, peanut butter and apples, like whatever it is that works for you, but making sure your belly is not going to be keeping you awake, because it will. Avoid caffeine. Again, 9 a.m. You still have half at 5 p.m. You still have a quarter at 1 a.m. You're just gotten rid of it at the next 9 a.m. So really reducing your caffeine. A veteran once that was from Canada originally, and I guess they must have been like, I don't know, I think they were British heritage at some point, and so they drank tea a lot all day long. And he cut out the tea, and that was the thing, right? Like maybe you're just a teensy tiny little bit away from sleeping, and maybe one of these things will be enough to push you over. And wouldn't that be amazing? It was for that dude. He just stopped drinking tea. So maybe it's not as going to be as hard as it seems or as daunting. Maybe one of these things will be enough to like tip you over. Avoid the caffeine, decrease fluids because you're going to have to go pee. Avoid alcohol. It is a short-term solution that screws up your actual sleep quality. You don't go into the right wavelengths of sleep. You don't stay in the good sleep. You don't stay in the restful sleep. It's a ton of liquid that's going to make you have to go pee. And even if you don't wake up enough to like actually know that you need to go pee, it's going to like the sensation of a full bladder is going to keep you awake as well. Ish, right? So you're not going to get good sleep. More things that people hate. Only allow yourself 20 minutes in the bed, tossing and turning. And this is kind of hard because one of the other things is don't have a clock in your room. A clock in your room only serves the purpose of pissing you off at 4 in the morning, waking up and realizing that it's 4 in the morning, or looking over and you still haven't gone to sleep. What good is that? Have your alarm set, have whatever, but clock watching is a real problem. But like mentally, generally, no, 20 minutes. If you haven't fallen asleep, you got to get up. Ugh, and it's so uncomfortable and you're so exhausted and you just want to lay there. But you really got to get up and go into a darkish room and like read the dictionary. So the light part is a big problem too. Especially blue lights, your phone, your TV, your computer, that mimics the sun. And your caveman brain is like, oh, the sun is out. Let me wake up. The light is a real problem. So decreasing screen time before bed, not having any blue lights on during bed. So this may mean actually getting like a real book. And I've heard that if you're taking melatonin, like any kind of light at all will also interfere with the melatonin use. Okay, so get out of bed, because again, we're animals, we're training ourselves in this behaviorism kind of format. And if you are in bed for longer than 20 minutes, tossing and turning, you're teaching yourself that bed is a place to toss and turn. You want your bed to be an island of sleep. And that's another part of this. Make your bed so cozy and so comfy, invest in it. Theoretically, you're spending 8 out of 24 hours in bed. So a third of your life is spent in this place. Make it nice. Make your, oh, it's a vacuum cleaner. I got hearing something. Somebody is vacuuming. Irrelevant. Make your bed a sanctuary. Make it super soft and sweet and cozy. You know, we all have limited budgets, but invest in good sleeping space. Another thing that nobody likes to do is your bed is only for sleeping and sexy time, if you're lucky enough. If you're not doing fun, sexy time, and if you're not sleeping, you should not be in bed. I know it sucks. It really sucks. Nobody likes this, but you should not be reading in bed. You should not be doing your taxes in bed. You should not be watching TV in bed. You should not be flipping around on your phone in bed. Like your bed should be a sanctuary of sleep or fun 6 times. And all this stuff feels so daunting and impossible, but I promise you it is possible. Oh, hello, puppy. Come on. Shoo, shoo. This is Louie. A big mess. Oh, that's another thing. No animals in bed. Animals are doofus go. Animals are so bad for your sleep. You don't realize it again because it's such a kind of subconscious, vague thing. But every time you're kicking up on them or every time they're kicking you, it's waking you up a little bit and screwing up your sleep. I love my animals. We have 5 that will sleep in the bed with us if we let them. But if sleep is a problem for you, if you're not sleeping, if you have insomnia, follow these things. At least some, at least a little, give yourself the best shots that you can. If you catch yourself ruminating, if you've got those racing thoughts, if you're sitting and dwelling and thinking and planning and having these conversations in your head about what you might say next week when the cop pulls you over because of the light that's busted, blah, 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 right? You're making up all these bizarre random scenarios, or you're having arguments in your head about stuff that happened 5 years ago, or whatever. If your brain just will not shut up, especially about the future, anxiety, rumination, get up, get out of bed, turn on a low light, write all that stuff down, take that piece of paper, fold it up, put it in a book, put the book in a shelf, get back in bed. And when your brain starts to say, oh, but what if that cop, blah, 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 and then this is what you say, nope, nope, that is on the list. The list is on the bookshelf. I've already written it down. I know what's up. I will deal with it tomorrow. Now is not the time. I've already thought it through. I've already dealt with it. I've already written it down. And just redirect and redirect and redirect and redirect for those racing, ruminating thoughts. Doing a mindfulness meditation kind of thing is helpful. Adult book stories are helpful. Stories in foreign languages can be helpful so that you're not like thinking of the plot and being kind of invested in it. You're just having this lulling kind of story time. And of course, if you have to, go for melatonin, go for the sleep stuff, lavender. Ambien is a real tricky thing, but talk to your doctors about that. And I think that's about it. Okay. There's some good on the Calm app. There's some good sleep things in the different mindfulness kind of meditation apps. So while we're talking about sleep, let's briefly go over the nightmare protocol, because that is something that people can get into trouble with. I would say 99.9% of my clients have a trauma history, from natural disasters to assault to family dysfunction, the whole gamut, to sometimes bullying, sexuality, there's a whole gamut of trauma. All of my clients have had it. I've never met a client that has the kind of problems that I help with that does not have some kind of trauma. And with trauma, probably possibly comes PTSD, CPTSD, and with that comes nightmares. So it would be completely plausible and likely even that if you have all these other difficulties that you're navigating, you may have nightmares too. when you have nightmares, you can become like phobic kind of going to sleep. Like you know what's waiting on the other side. It's such a dreaded, horrible thing that you don't want to go to sleep. So that is totally valid and makes sense, but it's not helpful. You cannot, like we said at the beginning, you can't do all this other stuff if you haven't slept. So if you have nightmares, one of the protocol for nightmares is on page 258. So you basically write down the nightmare, and that is a good form of exposure in and of itself. Also, writing down bad things takes the oomph out of them. So if you just write down, like if you have having a diary is a great idea, journaling is a great idea, writing down the bad stuff takes the sting out of it and it kind of objectifies it and it puts it in a different space that's a little bit out of this and into this, which makes it a little bit easier to hold. So write down the bad stuff, memories, traumas, ideas, whatever. In this particular situation, write down the nightmare. And include as many sensory aspects as you can, what it smelled like, what it sounded like, what it felt like, etc. Also, the thoughts and feelings that you had in the midst of this. I was scared and I thought that I was going to die, or I thought that it was my fault, or I thought whatever. And then before the bad thing happens, right? So this may be really early on, or it may be halfway through, but typically nightmares follow a storyline and a climax and a descent, and, you know. So before the bad thing happens, you change it. And luckily, we are magical wizards in our dreams and we can do whatever the heck we want. So become a magical wizard and have your wand and turn the perpetrator into a butterfly. Become a giant fire-breathing dragon and scorch the earth where the bad thing happens. Like whatever the bad thing is, you become magical. You can do whatever the heck you want and turn it into something where you win. So now the changed thoughts are, I am strong, I am powerful, I will win, you cannot hurt me, I'm going to stomp you, change the snake into a worm and have a bird come and eat the worm, like whatever magical thing. So you're doing this like awake and conscious, but you write down up until the point of the bad thing and then rewrite it for the good thing to happen. Then you read that over and over again and kind of memorize it, do some rehearsing, do some relaxation, and eventually it really does work. You may have to do it a million times, but it is an effective strategy. Okay. Trauma nightmares, I mean, it is a complicated thing. And if you have the option, please have an individual therapist, expert person walk with you through that, because it is intense and big and huge and scary. But the whole reason I'm doing the series is because things are weird right now and people don't have access to everything that they wish they had access to. So if you don't have that option, this is better than nothing. Okay. It always makes me so happy when y'all show up and leave comments. That way I don't feel like I'm talking to myself for the benefit of hearing my own voice. So, welcome. And yes, we should use and be grateful of our capacities while we have them, because stuff changes. Okay. We only have 10 more minutes. I think 10 minutes is not enough to get through ABC. So I'm going to stop here because I don't want to start it and get stopped. But for next session, to get you prepared for it, on the A, it is accumulating positives. And so we're going to start looking at values and goals. So if you're working along in your book, go ahead and do page 253. through 255. And the way you do this is you just go through and check the stuff that looks good to you. So if you like to have a life full of exciting events and relationships and things, you like to be daring and take adventures, check that. Have an exciting life, try new and different things, check those things. Or if you like to contribute to the larger community, check those things. Have integrity. When I'm doing this, I never check behave respectfully, be humble and modest, follow customs, behave properly, do what I'm told, and follow the rules. That's not, I mean, yeah, I try a little bit, but certainly not on the top of my priority list as far as values go. I would much rather have fun and enjoy things and contribute to the larger community. I care very much about spirituality and having a life of adventure and being part of a group. I don't care about being powerful and influencing others. Like, not my bag. I don't want to be a leader. I don't care about making a great deal of money. I don't care so much about being respected by others. Like, that's bottom of my priority list. But nobody can tell you what kind of values to have. If somebody else, that's the top of their list, that's perfectly fine. We all have different values. There's nothing wrong with the ones that you choose and the ones that you prioritize and put at the bottom of the list. But you really need to know what your values are. Who are you? What do you stand for? What do you give a crap about? So if you haven't done it already, go through and check those off. If you don't have a book, Google list of values. Write down your top 10. And remember that values are not attainable. Values are the cardinal direction. You're headed north, but you're never going to get north. I'm headed towards spirituality, but I will never be done with my spirituality. It is something that I value, that I care about, that I am oriented towards, but not something that I achieve. Being a loving individual. There are goals that I will hit along the way of sending my friends birthday presents or listening to my cousin's stories or giving my kids hugs. Those are attainable goals along my journey towards being a loving human being. But being a loving human being in itself is not attainable. So that's the difference between values and goals. So your homework, should you choose to accept it, is research the values part and write down what you give a care about. And then we'll get into the ABC part of ABC Please next time. All right, y'all. Go in love and light.